Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of MKB Law, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Merchant Hotel. It's a place that's very close to our hearts, having been involved with this property right since the outset. And it's a great example of what we think we can help to contribute to a discussion today around the twin pillars of property and hospitality in Northern Ireland. Just to introduce MKB Law, those twin pillars have been absolutely central to our business since we started. We've acted for developers, we act for constructors, and we act for lots of people in the hospitality sector. We understand those elements of our business very well. And my colleague Emma, who will be on the panel shortly, is one of Northern Ireland's leading experts in licensing law, in all of the elements of hospitality that operators need to deal with and cope with. And I have to thank Maria Conway, one of my other partners, who has built such a strong business, leading us to, I believe, having the largest number of licensing renewals in Northern Ireland, and the last licensing renewal day, which was 2022, Maria? Yeah. So it's absolutely core to our business, having both property people and hospitality people together. Possibly my earliest experience of that was a client who will remain nameless, who realised that if you bought a pub, the car park was worth an awful lot more than the pub. And if you drive around County Down, you'll see lots of tiny little pubs with huge blocks of apartments beside them. And that was the format for a long time. But since then, the world has become more sophisticated. To bring a project like this together requires so many skills and disciplines. You have the developer, you have to identify the site, you've got to get planning permission. You need an operator who's capable of bringing all these teams of specialist people together. You have to have it properly financed, funded. It has to be resourced. And I'm delighted to say that we've specialists from Bank of Ireland here today. And you have the construction side of it. You have to make sure that it's all well built. But these are challenging times. I suppose they always are challenging times. But just at the moment, there's a lot of discussion about pub closures in Wales. We have the same difficulties in Northern Ireland. We talk about what the impact of the surrender principle is on that, and does it stimulate the industry or is it a clog on the industry? My own view is that it strengthens and stimulates it. But hospitality is facing increased energy bills. We all understand that. Those of us who operate businesses in Belfast know what the rates burden on our businesses is. And perhaps the one that affects hospitality more than anything else is just the cost of employment, the impact of minimum wage and the increase in national insurance contributions over the years. And at the same time, the nature of town and city centres is changing. They've moved from being what was a retail-led experience into being a sense of place and a sense of presence. And hospitality has to be at the centre of delivering that. But if we look back at what this area was like 30 years ago, it was dead. Bringing one iconic hotel to the centre of it has turned the Cathedral Quarter into one of the most vibrant parts of our city. And just in that context, one of the things that whenever I was very involved with the Belfast Chamber of Trade, we wanted to see people living in the city. You can't have people living in the city without providing them with the fundamentals of living there. And pubs, restaurants, hotels, off licences are all part of that. And against that background, we have to deal with regulatory reform. We have to deal with the fact that many elements of the public sector in Northern Ireland don't work as well as they should. Regulation is difficult. We have a court service that if you want to open a pub in the summer, you can't get a hearing between June and September. And there are challenges there that we have to address. And we hope that we can contribute significant lateral and out-of-the-box thinking to trying to address those challenges. At this point, I'll hand over to Joris and let Joris say a few words. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Gordon. And thanks to MKB for what will be an insightful afternoon. Our supermarkets now better positioned to acquire licences than independent hospitality operators. Can Northern Ireland seriously compete for tourism with more restrictive licensing laws than Clay County in Alabama? And is the current alcohol licensing system protecting communities, as Gordon alluded to, and hospitality businesses, or is it actually strangling innovation and investment? Obtaining a liquor licence can sometimes feel easier if you inherit one from your grandparents. even if this means putting up with decades of ensuing unresolved resentment. Yes, I've been writing the Belfast Telegraph food column now for 18 years. Every week. I haven't missed a week in 18 years, which means that I've hit about 1,100 restaurants in this time. But being a food columnist used to mean something. Food reporting involved notebooks and going into restaurants undercover and wearing a jacket. Now it involves a production team, ring lights, drone footage. Look, food writers are being replaced by influencers. I sometimes feel I'm one sponsored espresso martini away from extinction. So I'm grateful that MKB asked me, and not a blogger, to address you. The truth is, though, that both the hospitality and media industries are undergoing seismic changes. There's no doubt. Beneath all the glossy video clips and hashtags, news and press coverage still matters. It's not what your children may be reading, but it's where policymakers go to gauge the mood of its electorate and what they think of an industry which employs more than 60,000 people. When issues arise like investments, developments, VAT, rates, planning applications, and the broader polemics such as the surrender principle, print, online, and broadcast news media are still your friends. May I remind you of John O'Dowd's recent U-turn, a classic example of news media arm twisting by people like Peter here in the crowd, and Hospitality Ulster and others who mounted a campaign which the media could not ignore. So don't be relying too much on influencers to help raise visibility for your challenges among the policy community. I'll be chairing 2 panel discussions between lunch courses, and we'll keep things informative, honest, and, unlike TripAdvisor, reasonably balanced. Please welcome our first panel, which includes Gordon McElroy, Conall Wolsey from Beannchor, Phil Ervine from Taste and Tour, and Gerardo Larios Rizo. Thank you very much. A big hand, please, for the 4. Is there any room for optimism at all, Gerardo, in hospitality? Are we looking at the jaws of hell, or are we entering a new period of optimism?
No, there's absolutely plenty to be optimistic about. You know, despite all of the media attention on the challenges, which are actually quite real, particularly when it comes to the squeeze on profit margins, the demand is still there. I was recently at an event with Tourism Ireland, and they were actually talking about the portion of discretionary spend from within the European Union that is actually dedicated for hospitality, for holidays, etc. And that is a flat 10%. It doesn't change. It hasn't actually changed. The only disruption was during COVID, and it was because people couldn't spend money. But before and after, it still remained flat at about 10%. In the States, it's a little bit lower, about 7% of income, which means that people are still willing to spend that money. And that is what we want. And it's capitalizing on that is becoming probably a bit more difficult. It's becoming a bit more nuanced, and the expectations continue to actually get higher and higher. But those that manage to deliver on customers' expectations are actually still experiencing growth. It is just that bottom line element that, managing to continue to grow at the bottom line, that is becoming a little bit more complicated. But there is plenty to be, happy about in terms of the demand is still strong. We're not actually suffering that. I mean, it was mentioned there about the licenses and alcohol in particular suffering. That is part of a larger seismic change. Alcohol consumption is down about 40% for the last 20 years. So it is a material change, but there's opportunities. There's non-alcoholic beverages. And for those seeking experiences, the accommodation product in Ireland has actually moved in leaps and bounds over the last 10 years. We have an infinite amount of park hotels now. We have pods for accommodation. It is constantly evolving, and is creating opportunities that are reflecting what the customers really want. So I think it's very lucky that we have such a dynamic entrepreneurs within the sector that manage to actually reinvent themselves and continue to actually, thrive despite the many challenges. It is a cyclical sector, so it is always going to be a little bit ups and downs, but the overall trajectory is still on the way up. So I'm still very optimistic. But the indigenous market is tremendously important because it does actually allow for that seasonality more than anything else. But the domestic demand, both in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, only accounts for about 30 or 40% of the overall expenditure. It is visitors from Great Britain and the continent and the States that account for the larger portion of the expenditure. So they are very, very important. And luckily enough, the air capacity into the country has been increasing for the last few years. The number of American visitors continue to rise. And things like the Open that you had here last year are doing a fantastic job in terms of attracting the higher expenditure Americans, which are the ones that really deliver. Because if you were to compare the benefit of having one American visitor versus one European visitor, because they travel a little bit longer and they stay a little bit longer, it is about twice or three times as much in terms of the average expenditure that you actually get. And, you know, in an era where we need to be smart about the carbon footprint of the visitors into countries, it is much better to actually potentially, you know, target those customers that you know that when they travel, they'll stick around for a little bit longer and spend a bit more money.
That's very interesting. Just on that finer detail about the visitor spend, are you counting the travel expense in that spend, or just the spend here?
No, just the spend here. The travel, the amount that they spend on travel is also reported, and you know, you can see that that's actually been increasing over the last couple of years. The average length of stay has been decreasing, but that has actually been throughout the world, both within the domestic market and the inbound visitors. They've all been cutting it. And if you were to look over the last 10 years, it's down about 20%, which is quite substantial. But people are still actually, you know, taking those trips, perhaps cutting it one night. But the bit that is actually probably hurting the most, and that is noticed by anyone that has a hotel here, is the food and beverage spend. There is probably the purse has tightened a little bit when it comes to food and beverage expenditure. So they're still staying the nights, not reneging for what is being paid, but they are cutting down at times on the food and beverage expenditure.
That's really interesting. Phil, you are frontline really with visitors. Would you put a rough split on numbers of local people on tours and visitor numbers?
So with our market, we've got a really strong domestic market where year by year, when we launched the business, I had a tourism business that had about 1% of international visitors, because it was all domestic, which was incredible because it was people from Northern Ireland wanted to experience Belfast again, and a lot of people hadn't been here. And you know, we get people, when you got someone from Lisburn, it felt like they were a tourist, and that was exciting. But now, you know, we're 10 years into business now, and about 60% of our market would be domestic, including corporate business, and then the remainder would be from ROI, from England and Scotland and Wales, and then also from North America, with the likes of our cruise tour operators are really, really significant for us. So that would be our split roughly.
What's the selling point? What is the USP for the taster?
We call it going off the eaten track, because I love a pun. But what we do is we showcase the very best of Belfast hospitality. But what we want to do is showcase our Belfast. We are not a big global operation who just go and drop a tour into every city and think they know it. We kind of show off the heartbeat of the city through its food and drink, and we tell the story of Belfast and how far it's come and how far it's going to go through the incredible hospitality that we offer.
And does Belfast have a reputation internationally? I mean, I know it picked up awards at the World Travel Market not that long ago, the great food destination. But do you get that from people? I didn't realise.
I think it's changed so much over the years. You know, with 10 years in business now into what was a new sector for me, the original challenge was probably getting people just know Ireland as Dublin, or they know it, you know, as the Blarney Stone. And for whenever you're at a Tourism Ireland or a Tourism Northern Ireland event, it was very much getting them to turn the other way out of the airport and come up the road instead of going down it. And that, for me, is probably the thing that it's more just that lack of awareness of Belfast or where it is geographically that has maybe changed over the years. And now, what I will say about Belfast is I think the likes of Dublin has reached a point of tourism fatigue where there's so many millions of people going through those streets that they're not giving them a first-class service. Whereas in Belfast, we're still very much of the opinion, it's like, are you sure you meant to come here? Like, you didn't mean to go down to Dublin? Okay, right, we'll treat you really well, you know, and we give them a hug and we treat them with genuine hospitality, which they don't get elsewhere. So I think we're getting that reputation for that Belfast hospitality, which I truly believe is unique.
Mm-hmm. Conall, Beannchor is a broad-ranging group. You've got high-end, like here, you've got Little Wing. There's so many aspects to your business. Do you find that places like Little Wing have an impact, generative impact, that, for instance, the merchant would have had on the Cathedral Quarter, insofar as it helps spread, it helps the ripple effect? I've noticed that Little Wing outside Belfast and so on do seem to have that impact. High Street Hollywood, which didn't look the best at that part where you are now becomes quite vibrant.
We have spread our company across Northern Ireland. We are very, very Belfast-centric, but we've done that because we've, as Phil's alluded to, for maybe the last 20 years, 10, 15 years ago, we were very reliant on local business. And obviously, the more we invent or renew our businesses in the area and we grow, we were very aware that more than anything, we didn't want to steal customers from our own venues. So we've created a sort of a web of different businesses, Little Wing obviously being one of them, that a customer or the same customer can experience different experiences throughout the country. I think obviously the high street struggles, Little Wing, we've 11 or 12 of those, and they vary across, like you say, we are very much Belfast centric when it comes to our pubs. We have some suburban pubs as well. High streets struggle, rural pubs really struggle. I think that's where hospitality is one of the real struggles is going to be. While we have regional towns, Belfast is always not too far away. So someone from Bangor can get a bus up, they can get a taxi up within 15 minutes. Originally, I'm from Bangor. We have a pub we still have in Bangor. It's 40, 50 years going. So
What's that called?
Jenny Watts.
Jenny White.
So,
Legend.
so it's as much work as it is there as it is to run a pub here, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of hard work goes into it because you're constantly, your catchment of people, half of them are leaving at the weekend, So it's...
Who are your clients? I mean, is it family and regular weekly visits, or is it visitors? Or?
I mean, rural pubs, rural hospitality, if I want to call Bangor rural. I know it's a fantastic city now, apparently. It's about families. It's about... it's a legacy pub. It's about doing everything. Well, all our business is about doing the right thing, but that one is real attention to detail and attention to care. We've got regulars there. Believe it or not, that's where I began working when I was 11. So, and I got about a fiver for about 25 hours work. But those regulars, I'll go down there on a Saturday with my kids, and it's the same regulars. It's the same people. You chat to them, and that's what you'll get in Bangor that you won't get in Belfast in some of our venues. So it's different people. Hospitality, there is a challenge at the minute, but it's very much, everything's running at a fast pace. The world's very, very fast, and it'll never be this slow again.
Yeah.
So it's about attention to detail. It's about evolution of hospitality. I remember, actually, I was just talking about Jenny Watts. I remember, my dad came home and they kicked someone out for trying to sell them bottled water. So that's 20 years ago. And now look how far we've come. Bars are doing bottled water. They're doing coffee. They're doing food. They're opening at 10 a.m. They're shutting at 2 a.m. It's an evolution, but it's about treating the customer right and being hospitable.
You've raised a really interesting point. Gordon hopefully might be able to enlighten us a wee bit on that. The high street is going through dark times. It's going through a hell of a difficult time. Martina Connolly's here from Belfast One, has seen the revival in Belfast city centre. But does hospitality have a role to play in that revival as retailers may pull out or decrease their footprint in bricks and mortar?
I think it's self-evident that it must do. And mine did probably 6-7 months ago. We brought some international clients to Belfast. We had a series of meetings, and we walked from our offices, which are in Great Victoria Street, down to the Cathedral Quarter. And at that time, I was actually really pleased at how well Belfast city centre looks. The revitalisation that has gone on in a period of 20 years. When you walk through down Chichester Street, you walk across past the City Hall. We see the Bedford Hotel has just recently opened, and we hope that that's going to be a driver of regeneration for that area and has the opportunity to rebuild a lot of the offerings along Bedford Street. I've already alluded to what this hotel has done in this area. There are plans afoot for more apart hotel schemes, and those are great for businesses coming into the city. You do fear for the more rural towns and communities. You see hotels being lost to turn into residential schemes. Residential schemes are very needed, but it's still a loss of facilities and resources in those rural towns. I think the short answer is yes. Hospitality is essential to provide a mixed, vibrant economy, and also to support the driver for a lot of the planning changes within the city, Joris.
You're right. I mean, you're being very realistic about, what's happening out there. Do you share Gerardo's optimism? Do you feel that in the longer term, we've actually got the right basics, we've got the foundations right? That events in Northern Ireland, I mean by that the golfing and all the leisure stuff, will help bring in the crowds?
Belfast as a city is extraordinarily successful in doing that. Belfast is the main tourism driver for Northern Ireland. Derry does very well, and Derry has its own unique offering that it provides to people. There is a risk that those twin centres can suck trade away from other towns. We know, talking to our own clients, that whenever Belfast is busy, clients who have venues in the satellite towns around Belfast do very well. When Belfast stops being busy, those are the nights that start to fall away. So there's like a series of concentric circles where if there's not as much activity in Belfast itself, you then see Antrim, Ards, and those towns not doing so well. We can see that they're working on reinvention and making sure that they have offerings that appeal to their own local catchment areas. The important thing, perhaps, is that we celebrate the success of Belfast and Derry, but we have to have regard to what's going on outside those twin hubs.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up for now. We're going to move on to our first course. Our second panel will take up the discussion with the second panel, and we'll be looking more at projects that are in hand and that ecosystem that exists of partnerships within the industry. But in the meantime, please thank our wonderful panel, Gerardo, Phil, Conall and Gordon. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so sorry to interrupt your conversations. This will be the last time I'll be interrupting you. That was a fantastic starter. I loved that. I berate influencers, but I did take my camera out. It was delicious. We're going to invite the second panel up to talk about various matters to do with hospitality, licensing, property, and so on. And to that end, we've got experts, including Emma Smyth from MKB, Diana Thompson from MBA Planning, Gavin Weir from Avison Young, and Colin Neill from Hospitality Ulster. Hi, folks. We were talking earlier about various matters, and we touched upon this idea that, you know, nothing happens on its own. People have to work together. Emma, can you maybe give us an idea of what that looks like? You know, what kind of people do you work with on all of these projects?
We act for a number of hospitality clients right across the north. We obviously act for Beannchor. I suppose poignant that we're here today in what is the merchant's 20th anniversary. But we also act for other hospitality operators, including the likes of Noble in Hollywood, who've just opened their new venture, and we've also acted for the guys who've acquired the Anchor Bar complex in Portstewart. So for us, we get great pride in acting for those operators, seeing them expand.
Noble has established itself over the past 7 or 8 years. They opened next door. What did you have to do to make it happen?
Yeah, so I think we've acted for Noble from the outset, and Noble started off upstairs, and Noble itself did expand into a larger premises. I think they've seen an offer a need in Hollywood for something different, and they've expanded into quite a bespoke Italian offering, which has already been hugely successful for those guys. So in terms of what we did was want to understand their vision, guide them through the licensing process, and work with key stakeholders in allowing them to do that seamlessly.
So what kind of key stakeholders? Are there any in here?
Yeah, well, I mean, with Diana here and Gavin and Colin as well, but, you know, we would work closely with Diana and MBA Planning if our clients need to acquire planning permission for any of their projects, but also Diana would prepare reports to confirm the need for a particular license in an area.
So it's a joint approach, Diana?
Absolutely, and we've had lots of success, and we've worked for Beannchor. We did the National, we did the Ulster Sports Club, all new licenses into the city centre, so that was quite a feat and a bit of a coup to get those.
Is it difficult? I mean, how hard is it that they need people like you and a team of legal experts to get a licence?
Well, I'd say it's impossible unless you have me on your team, so... Well, a lot of it can depend on whether or not you get an objector. I mean, one of the recent controversial applications I've been involved in is the Little Pub in Dundonald.
I was coming to that. I'm glad you've brought it up. Thank you. Supermarkets and bars, seriously.
So that is going to open in a matter of weeks now, so that'll be very exciting. I mean, really the backstory there is Lidl couldn't prove a need for an off licence within that particular vicinity, so they thought about it. What can we prove a need for? We can prove a need for a pub. Let's do that. And we're weeks away from that opening. So.
And has there been uproar? I mean, I've seen bits and pieces, but has there been real uproar and outrage?
Probably just from the objector. I actually think the population at large in Dundonald are really looking forward to it. There's lots of positive feedback on social media. They were getting queries through their press room from California and all through America. It's such a unique concept.
Do you see this, frankly, as a social uplift for Dundonald?
Oh, absolutely. And, part of our evidence was this is the bullseye of Dundonald. It's right in the hub of activity. You've got the Asda across the road. You've got the Spar complex, the glider right at the back. So, you have a captive audience. Then you've got the large housing area across the road. So, it's right centrally located to where the focus is. Yeah. And of course that involved surrendering the old Ruby's licence. That was moving a peripheral licence right into the heartbeat of Dundonald.
Right, okay. Colin, what do you think of that?
I actually have no objection to Lidl having a pub. In fact, they're about to join us. We've organised training. Michael Stewart's doing the training for them to make sure they can do a quality product. It is, look, there are issues around, obviously, arguments around the surrender principle and all. You can get into that argument through this, and I suppose I look at for the surrender principle, people say, what's a barrier to entry? I actually think it's created a market that supports independence. Yes, you'll have some multinationals, little Wetherspoons and stuff come into it as well, but it has. If you look at GB, 9 people, well, to fair, 9 companies own 53% of the pubs. They're all the same with the same offer. Look at here, the quality of product we have, the quality of fit out, the operation. Look at Bill. You look at through our hotel range and stuff. That standard's set right through, and I think it's great. I think it would be a sad day if we lose our independence. It's a huge tourism offer as well.
So some would say that the licensing system has become a bit of a protection racket, though, for existing license holders.
Are there people that would abuse the system? The people abuse any system, whether it be, no matter what the law is or the planning application or the license application. So look, you will get that, but the vast majority of people, they're running a good quality product. For new entrants to the market, I have a number of young people on my board. The fact the license has value is how they were able to borrow the money. Mm-hmm. Because generally, to be honest speaking, a pub building is not really fit for anything else if you're not using it as a pub. It's a site. Mm-hmm. So security goes against the license, and that's the entry in, how you can go borrow the money. And look, people go, you can't get into our industry. You really can. And look, obviously I'm singling out the pub. We represent the whole sector. But, the pub fall into that area of it. About 20% of the pubs in Northern Ireland are rented leased. So we've the same sort of entry market as you would have in GB. Mm-hmm. The brewers lease them and stuff. And if you're in and you're good, you can get the money and the backing and go and grow and open premises. And I think we've just got so many good pubs. I would reckon, on the island of Ireland, we still have the better pubs even. And look, they're all the poor imitations of Irish pubs right around the world. This is where we have to cherish it.
But if you were a pub owner near the border, on this side of the border, would you feel that way?
Yeah, I think so too. And they are, there is a difference in the culture still across the border. Look, it's a difference in our pub culture between East and West even. Mm-hmm. When we fought to get Sunday trading to late night, not that vital maybe in the East. I think it hung drawn and quartered in the West if I hadn't got Sunday included, Mm-hmm. So they are different. Look, different communities, it was mentioned earlier on about different types of venues. It's the same as our regional hotels or regional restaurants. They cater for different markets, but I think the quality is really up there.
Gavin, you know about the numbers behind all of this. Do you see this as I'm talking about the Lidl development. Is that a good example of what we may see more of in the future? Not necessarily supermarkets, but other entities getting licenses?
No, I don't really think so. I think it's a bit of a one-off, to be honest with you. I think generally speaking, if you're talking about licensing in particular, you have to remember why that law was brought in. It's because there's too many pubs, too many off-sales. I don't think anybody struggles to get into a bar or an off sales or a supermarket to get served alcohol. So I think it's a bit of a non-argument, to be honest with you. It's a one-off event. It doesn't impact the market. Not Tesco aren't sitting looking, we're going to open pubs here. Colin makes a very good point. We have a very unique offering. It goes down very well with our visitors. And I just don't see the need to open that up anymore. There might be a specific reason why Lidl are doing that in that particular area. I can't see it being repeated, no.
You're an agent.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? Because I don't know what an agent does.
Not very much. Not very much on a Friday afternoon anyway, because there's plenty here. No, look, you're a broker. The Americans would call it a broker. You're an agent, you're a counsellor, you're a coordinator. You tie the legals together with the banking. But primarily, deals are about someone who wants to sell a property and someone who wants to buy a property. Our big challenge at the moment is there's not as many people that want to buy these assets because these assets aren't making as much money as they used to. When I started working, you could have seen EBITDA percentages from turnover. I'll keep this simple because I see Robert Tolan in the room. If you turned over £1 million, you could have made 250 grand, 25% bottom line profit. That slipped down to 20. It slipped down to 17.5. It slipped down to 15. And you just see this constantly getting squeezed because of the cost of doing business.
And is that geographically the spread or
no,
certain areas?
Yeah, it's a fair question. We talk about a two-tiered market at the moment where the absolute prime assets in Belfast city centre are enjoying super profits. There's no doubt about that. There's no point pretending otherwise. The bottom end of the market can usually sell their liquor license and sell their property for 100 grand. They're probably not much worse off either because their business isn't worth much more than that. The squeezed middle, I suppose you could call it. I include medium-sized pubs and provincial full-serviced hotels who offer a really important community service as well. They're the guys that are getting really pinched, and that's where the demand's dropped, and that's where the banks have maybe gone a little bit cold, and that's where we see a bit of a struggle at the moment. There'll always be exceptions. We talked about the anchor there. Its location carries it. We were involved in that, and it was a good deal, and there was plenty of interest, but not every provincial 3-star hotel is the anchor overlooking the beach on the north coast, So certain things
and yet
have
you
to
get
happen.
exceptions. I mean, there are exceptions, but I mean, a Galgorm.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And again, some of the offerings, back to what Colin said, some of the offerings we have here compare with anything across Europe, and they will be fine. There's a big high-profile sale at the moment of a group locally. There'll be plenty of interest in that, and that interest will probably come from outside of NI. But yeah, look, generally speaking, I think it's that middle section of the market that's going to struggle going forward, and we need to be creative, and the deals are changing. The structure of the deals are changing. We're looking at leases. We're looking at leases with options to buy. You have to be creative. Property is all about your exit. People get hung up on what to pay for something, but if you own it for 10 years, you get a good turn out of it. It's really about what you sell it at.
Yeah. I definitely, we've noticed that in the pub sector that they have been innovative, they have been creative. The food offer in pubs across the north is incredible. Emma, have you seen that growth maybe in accommodation being added to pubs as well? Or is that just something that is incidental and anecdotal?
Yeah, to touch on Beannchor again, but it's been well publicised about their new venture on Ann Street, which is ongoing at the minute. And it's going to be an accommodation complex along with an Indian restaurant and a pub attached. So they don't want to tie themselves probably just to a pub in that venue.
It's about diversifying a little.
Well, if I can cut in, it's about profit.
Yeah.
It's about making money, and I
can't do it just sell.
I can have a stab at cleaning a room, but I can't serve you up a 3-course meal. So it's cheaper to sell a bedroom, often online, at good margin while the rates are good in Belfast, and turn it over the next morning for 5, 7, 8 quid, whatever it might be. Right. So it's about profitability. So you will see businesses change as a result.
Right, okay. Well, I'd love to continue this conversation, but our time is up. Gavin, thank you very much. Emma, Diana, thank you very much. Colin, as always. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.